In the Democratic Republic of Congo, where the opposition candidate Felix has won the tightly contested presidential vote, provisional results announced by the Electoral Commission early this morning put him ahead of another opposition candidate, Martin Fayulu, with 38.57% of the vote. If confirmed, Tshisekedi will be the first opposition challenger to win since the DR Congo gained independence. President Joseph Kabila, who is stepping down after 18 years in power, had promised DR Congo's first orderly transfer of power since the country's independence from Belgium in 1960. Right, and before we engage my guest here from Congo, Tusa, I want us to look at some of the facts that you know about DR Congo. First of all is that in 1960, the Democratic Republic of Congo gained independence. Joseph Kabila was elected president in 1961. Prime Minister Patrice Lumumba was sacked and assassinated. Then in 1965, Mobutu Sese Seko ascended to power via a coup, but he would be ousted later, 32 years later, in another coup. That was in 1997. And therefore, in 1997, Laurent Kabila took over after the ouster of Mobutu Sese Seko. And then in 2001, Kabila was assassinated by his bodyguard, and therefore his son, Joseph Kabila, succeeded him at the age of 29. And he has been in office since that time until now. And then in the 2018 election in December, there were 21 candidates in that election. There were 3 frontrunners who emerged. That is Martin Fayulu of ECIDE party. There was Felix of UDPS. He's the son of a veteran politician, and he had promised to fight poverty during his campaigns. And finally, there was Emmanuel Shadari of PPRD. He was picked and supported by President Kabila, and he's a former interior minister. Right, I know it appears that Felix Tshisekedi has, I'm still having trouble pronouncing that. How do you pronounce his name?
Tshisekedi, Felix Tshisekedi.
Tshisekedi.
Correct.
It's quite an interesting name. So now, Dr. Tusa, you've been in the country, of course, teaching at Hekima College, but back at home we see now the provisional results indicating that Felix has won this election. From the reports you're getting from home, how is the situation there?
I would say, first of all, you always have people who celebrate, of course, those who supported Felix Tshisekedi. But I think there is a good majority of people also who were backing Martin Fayulu, who believe, you know, the provisional results that have been announced by the CENI, the Commission for Elections in the Congo, that these results still need to be challenged in court. So I called Kinshasa this morning, and I was told that everywhere, you know, the streets were celebrating, jubilating. But when you go to the news, when you read Twitter accounts of many people inside and outside the Congo, you really feel that the final word has not been said yet. So waiting for the next move.
So there have been mixed reactions, as you said, and of course also different estimates. The Catholic Church, that is apparently more trusted than even the Electoral Commission, has a different set of results. How far is that, and what are they saying?
Well, that's a very good point you're making, Sam. The Catholic Church has been one of the most credible actually, observers of the election. They monitor with 40,000 people dispatched across the country, following closely. And the day of the election, on the 30th of December, the Catholic Church was reporting actually 3 times a day. So in the morning, in the midday, and in the evening, reporting about the process of the elections. And recently, you know, the 4th of January, the Catholic Church gave its provisional report also to the diplomatic body in Kinshasa, not saying who won, but at least giving the trends and the tendencies of the electorate, you know, the voting. Of course, that unnerved a lot the government, which threatened the Catholic Church for potential trouble or protest if anything happens after the CENI announces its official results. But the Catholic Church defended itself by saying, you know, if there are protests that ensue, that will not be the result of what we as monitors or as part of the civil society are doing. It will be reflecting the non-conformity with the result of the polls. So the Catholic Church is in that kind of awkward situation, watchdog at once, you know, for the people, but at the same time trying to push the government to tell the truth of the polls.
If this succeeds, then it would be the very first time there is a democratic transfer of power. And so when you look at your institutions, you don't have that history of a democratic transfer of power, but when you look at the institutions, are they able to authoritatively say that Felix has actually won this election?
Well, that's a profound question, because authority, you can read authority from different perspectives. I think legally they have that authority. Morally, if that is not really what the people expressed during the, you know, voting day, you know, through the polls, then that authority, you know, may be there legally, but not morally. But yes, we do have the institutions set in place, although if you read the history of the Congo for the last maybe 20 years or more, if you go back to Kabila further or to Mobutu's time, you know that all of these institutions have been infeuded to the ruling person, to the incumbent president. So they lack sometimes, you know, that autonomy, independence. The way we saw, for instance, in Kenya, when, you know, the elections got annulled, you remember? That was a way to say institutions at some point can play a huge, tremendous role in, you know, fostering democracy in Africa. So in the Congo, we are not there yet, but we hope we are building up, you know, the momentum to establishing powerful, strong institutions.
Right. We have another opposition leader, Martin Fayulu, claiming that he has won this election, or insinuating that the election should have tilted to his favor. And so you're looking at a possible conflict. How possible is it that the country will be in a position to resolve this crisis through the legal process and not through the streets and civil strife?
You know, just to answer that question, I would say, first of all, that the street should not be looked at as necessarily something bad, because every time that people have been barred from expressing themselves, you know, or when their voices have been stifled, you know, from expressing what they really want and desire, sometimes the street is a best way. In other democratic countries, people protest and they're not killed. Next to what I'm just saying is that the proclamation of the results by the Catholic Church, not the result, at least the giving of the tendencies, the patterns, you know, of the electorate, the voting, that can also help, because the diplomatic body in Kinshasa already have those statements from the day of the elections. So at least there is, if there has been any rigging or anything cooked between the day of the elections and the day of the proclamation, as the CENI has just made it last night, then we have proofs that we can confront. And Martin Fayulu can, you know, use those proofs, you know, evidence to say this is what happened, and he can go to the court with you know, those evidence. Yes.
And when you look at this election was conducted on the 30th of December 2018, so today is 10th, so it's about 11 days or 12 days since that election. And part of the challenge that has affected African elections is how fast you're able to count, tally, and then release the results. So it has taken you, your country, nearly almost 2 weeks to count these results. And like in Kenya, the situation why sometimes there has been suspicion is because of the delay of transmitting and eventually announcing the results. So how can a Congolese citizen trust the process, bearing in mind that the election was just on one day, but the production of results takes more than 10 days?
The biggest challenge lies there. And the confidence, the trust that the people have to put in the government, it comes actually from such behaviors and attitude of the government. Because in every place where you want democracy to be transparent and trustworthy and clear, the very same day, given the people and they should have been able to transmit at least, the result from each polling station the same day. Also, another problem is that from the next day, the following day after the elections, till today, as we are speaking, you know that the internet has been severed for the Congolese people. So internet, SMS messages, all of these have been just, cut off, shut down. A way to say why a government that wants to work in transparency would feel threatened to just expose the result, to make the people participate, to integrate and include, say, the observers to the process of tallying the votes, and so on and so forth. So all of these have aroused some kind of suspicions in the minds of most Congolese people, and they believe actually some deals have been struck between the one who has been announced and the outgoing regime. So
is that a possibility?
Well, in Congo and in politics, I would say in general, everything is possible. So it could be a possibility. I don't have any evidence, but at least it is proved that Kabila was meeting with Tshisekedi in the week that followed the elections, and that also would be illegal because he was not yet pronounced victor of the elections.
Okay, so and so when you look at this, if the provisional results show that he has scored 38.5% of the vote, is there a likelihood that this can change when the final results are released?
Well, one thing you need to know or to remember is that, and the people are saying this in the Congo, there are regions or provinces that are being blocked from participating in the elections. This was Beni, Butembo, Yangambi in the DRC, and apparently almost 1.2 million voters were prevented from participating. So this is a region that was completely won to Martin Fayulu. So had you had those people participate in the voting, exercise, maybe that would have changed. And look at the difference, between Fayulu and Tshisekedi. One got maybe 38%, the other one got, say, 34%. Okay, the difference is almost 1 million votes, so that tells you that if really the result announced by the CENI reflects the will of the people, somehow the result would have been different if everybody voted.
Right, yes. And so when you talk about 38.57, so there is a whole 61.43% of voters that participated in the election that did not vote for this gentleman, Felix. When you look at DRC's political journey that has been over the past, since independence actually, what legitimacy would he have, or how is it good enough for him to manage the country, bearing in mind that it's just above 1/3 of the voters that have supported his bid?
Good question. The DRC has 80 million people plus. The voters who registered were up to 40 million, and those who participated in the voting exercise were only 18 million. So that's a very, very small number. But you might remember that the Congo was supposed to have say 2 rounds, to vote for the president in case you don't get the majority of the votes. But as of last year, the regime was able to change that, constitutional provision to say that a simple majority would be enough.
Right.
And this is what is giving maybe the advance to Tshisekedi.
Okay.
So that's, if it is constitutional, then it gives him the legitimacy to rule the country.
All right.
But maybe, the constitution will need to be revisited at some point again if people want to come back to the 2 rounds, electorate. systems.
Right. Looking at that, of course, 80 million citizens, of 40 million registered voters, a country that is very rich. Much extremely. Of it is in terms of minerals. But of course, due to the political instability that you've experienced and improper management of public affairs, you are where you are currently. So when the new president comes in, whether it's Felix or whoever, what should they focus their energies on in that country that doesn't have a good history in terms of democracy?
Well, yeah, the Congo has many challenges, but the Congo has great potentials, and I don't talk about the minerals because those have always been there. And maybe just to refer you to what happened recently, a Congolese doctor won the Nobel Peace Prize, and we all know for what reasons. So he's been very much involved in helping victims of sexual abuses and wars in Eastern Congo. Ever since Kabila came to power, I think he offered to fight, insecurity. But to these days, we're talking a couple of days ago, some villages in Eastern Congo were attacked by ADF. So you still have all these rebel groups. And if you paid attention to the acceptance discourse, like the speech of the Nobel Peace Prize, he was very much depicting the picture of the current situation in the Congo.
Right.
So many things have not improved yet in terms of human security, in terms of just the security of the people, So the incoming government has to focus primarily on establishing or providing peace and security to the people, but also, I think, to strengthening the institutions, because the Congo as a country, as a state today, has very weak institutions. As I was saying before, the military, for instance, the army, you cannot say that it is defending really the territory or the people, as it is infiltrated to one person who has all the resources and who can pay or buy arms, to protect his own self-interest.
Right.
So Congo has those challenges, and the current president or the incoming president should have to face those crises and challenges.
Great. And as Joseph Kabila now exits the presidency, I don't want to say politics because we may not know, but how much of trust do the Congolese have that he will stay out and allow the new regime to run the affairs of the country?
Well, the moment, this is my personal opinion, the moment he's no longer in command, in charge, I think the incoming president should be man enough, excuse me the expression, to define the rules of the game. So even if Kabila still has clout in terms of military, in terms of resources, in terms of, he knows really the Congolese politics for having been there for more than 18 years, but the future of the Congo is being redesigned as we talk now. If we really have to implement on these elections in the power change, regime change, we have everything scratch, I would say, a blank paper to begin rewriting the history, political history of the Congo. And Kabila can be there. Of course, he has every right. And as someone who has served the country at that level, I don't know what kind of a deal will be given to him in terms of respecting the office. But it will all depend on the stamina, political stamina of the incoming president and what he can achieve in terms of goals and vision for the country.
Great.
Yes.
Tusa Kafarire Murula. I'm trying to get your name correct. Thank you so much for joining us on Daybreak.
Yes.
To talk about the DRC election. Of course, Tusa is a lecturer at the Hekima Institute, of course, teaching African culture. Thank you so much and wish you well in your country as you go through this transition. Again, asante sana.
Thank you.